Hello, everyone who is here joining me now live or in the future. I'm just going to take a moment and share this onto my feed, and we'll begin. Awesome. Taking a moment to just feel into the space with all of you and appreciate everyone who watches this as we are going to chat about something that's been very ripe in my conscious awareness, which is the shift from subconscious into superconscious. So something that I find within people who are developing themselves on a spiritual journey, improving their lives in personal development, a lot of focus is on the subconscious, right? It's going in, it's doing shadow work, it's working on the subconscious patterns and programs, and that is all great and groovy. That said, there is something that's much more expansive and much more aligned with our creative potential than our subconscious. So to really understand the layers of the mind to begin with, to just have a context for where this conversation is coming from and where it's potentially going, is we have, right, three different fractals of our mind. And hello, everyone who's coming in and joining me now. We have our subconscious, that is a mechanism that stores experiences that have been had. And it also governs the biological mechanisms of our body. Then we have our conscious minds, which is going to be what we are presently aware of and experiencing currently in this now moment. And then we have our superconscious mind. And our superconscious mind is made up of three different dimensions. It's made up of 4, 5, and 6. It's made up of our astral body, which is our emotional body, our emotions. And then the next dimension that composes our superconscious mind is the archetype, so the archetypical minds. And then the highest of that, which would be the 6th dimensional mind, is the angelic mind. So in the superconscious mind is actually where everything that we experience is created. Okay, super important to be aware of that, because a lot of creation, say like programs where people are helping you to create your own reality, they'll really focus in on your subconscious and your conscious mind. Well, when we actually zoom all the way out, we're creating everything first in our superconscious, because our superconscious is directly in alignment with our soul matrix. So our soul is actually creating everything first through our superconscious mind. And when we learn how to tap into our superconscious mind, then we can actually be powerful creators. Now, from the standpoint of, if you're in shadow work, if you're in unconscious healing and subconscious work, I saw a meme the other day that was like, make your subconscious work for your conscious. Well, it doesn't necessarily work for that. And now, granted, a vast majority of people are creating through their subconscious. They're creating through their unconscious, because what's happening is all of their stores. So remember, your subconscious mind is designed to store all of your experiences. Hello, Nina and Carly and everyone who's here with me now. So our subconscious is designed to store all of our experiences. And what ends up happening is, if we're storing experiences that are painful or traumatic, well, then what ends up happening is that those get recreated. What is at the more expanded state, though, is if we really want to change that, we got to first recognize that what came before the conscious and subconscious, it was the superconscious. So there was an emotion, there was an astral body influence, or there was an archetypical experience that was to be had, or even higher, your angelic mind. So our angelic mind, just for those who are unaware, is actually the 3rd strand of our DNA. And the angelics, essentially the human beings, and not to go into like a huge long history conversation right now, that said the the Orphan, the original angelic humans, had 3 strands of DNA. And it is the closest consciousness to the soul matrix, that is directly creating from the oversoul level. So from that perspective, our reality, if we have this awareness that our soul has created everything before we came into this life, right? And then our oversoul created all of our soul matrix lifetimes, then everything that we're experiencing now is actually not a byproduct of our subconscious, is a byproduct of our superconscious. So if we want to tap into our powerful ability to create, we got to get out of this shadow work and get out of this subconscious and rise up into our superconscious, because it's at the superconscious level of our mind that we're actually creating everything that we're experiencing. If we continue to go down into the shadows, it's really great to go down into the shadows to heal trauma, right? It's very important for us to be able to heal these traumatic experiences so that they're not recreating themselves epigenetically through our bodies, which essentially blocks us. What ends up happening is that a lot of people mentally aren't tapped into their superconscious mind. So when they're not tapped into their superconscious mind, they can't access that creator consciousness that so many are wanting to access, right? This ability to create anything that you want in your reality. We can't tap into that when we're living from a subconscious state. And a vast majority of people are living unconsciously. They're living from their subconscious mind, and they're recreating their traumas and their past experiences that haven't been fully integrated and transmuted. So they're living from this habitual state of being, which is not our divine space to be living from. It's not the highest space that we could actually be living from in this life. So at first, that shadow work is great because it allows for us to process a lot of backlogged karma that we have not yet fully integrated, and we integrate and we heal that. That said, if we want to move into life beyond that, well, then a lot of people shift from their subconscious to becoming more consciously aware, becoming more fully in the present moment, and thinking that they're making choices that are creating then the next result. But what's actually then governing those choices is actually the superconscious. It's what archetypes you have at a soul level chosen to embody and to experience life through, and your astral influences, the emotional imprints that you are healing energetically karmically, or that you are to experience through. So when we talk about, and this is a key, because a lot of like powerful manifestation courses and meditations and things like that, they'll tell you, you've got to feel it. You've got to feel what you're wanting to create in order to actually create it. So that's tapping into one layer of our superconscious mind, the layer that seems and feels most tangible, because everyone has feelings, everyone's tapped into their emotions, everyone is experiencing their emotions to some degree. So we tap in and at least have gotten an awareness that our emotions play a very important role in our ability to create. The question is, why do they play such an important role? And this is when our superconscious comes in, and the awareness that the 4D, the fourth dimension, the astral mind, is a part of the superconscious mind, the soul matrix, and that is where we're actually creating everything from. So our emotions are a part of our higher creation. Well, if we look at it from the perspective of descending down to ascend up, well, then if we're coming down from our soul matrix, from the 7D, we're entering down into the 6, through the 5, to the 4, into the 3, 2, 1, right? So from that perspective, then, the emotions are actually, the astral body is actually being influenced then by the 5th, which is your archetypes. It is the archetypes that your soul has chosen for you to embody in this lifetime, and therefore all of your experiences that you're having are directly correlated to experiences of those archetypes. So the archetypes are these overarching patterns of the universe that hold certain energetic signatures for how matter manifests itself. So for instance, one archetype is the leader, or we have the muse, or we have the creator, or the artist, right? So let's use the artist as an overarching archetype. So the soul uses the archetype to create matter through. So if the soul decides in this lifetime you are going to be manifesting through the artist as one of your archetypes, you manifest through several archetypes. What that means then is that your physical form is going to have been created through the patterning of the artist, so that in this life, your physical manifestation has characteristic traits of an artist. Ability to create and paint or write or sing or dance, right? Anything that is artistic and creative in nature, that is stored within that artist archetype. So essentially, if we look at the archetypes as the way, because our soul is not physical, it's not in a body like we see these bodies here. It is etheric matter. So in order for the soul to actually be able to come down into the physical, it has to have vehicles to do that through. And since all of our souls are actually one, if we go all the way back up to source, then we've created these patterns perpetually throughout time. And the archetypes have become these mental patterns of the fifth dimension of consciousness that we are creating through. And it's important to be aware that what we're talking about within the fifth dimension of consciousness and like this 5D and living in 5D trend that's happening are two very different things, right? So a lot of people that are talking about I'm living in 5D don't really have any idea about the dimensions of consciousness and about what's really happening on these different planes. So just put any pre-context that you have about any trending topics just kind of like on a shelf over there and allow for just the purity of this to be talked about and come through without any precognition. So from that space, the archetypes then, we are over soul, then we go up a level, right? So we're going from the archetypes, which are at 5, and we have our emotional body, our astral body at 4, and then right above that we have our angelic mind. So this 6th dimension, our angelic mind. So this is our angelic template. And our angelic mind is our soul matrix, right? So this is what our soul has intended for our life to experience, to create, to heal, to transcend, all of the different fabrications that our soul looks at when it's painting your life. And then through that angelic mind, that imprint of this life, it then descends that consciousness down through the archetypes, picks up all the archetypes that are going to be able to allow for you to achieve that seed, right? That life imprint. And then the archetypes then go down through your emotional body and pick up all the different emotions that play around with all the different archetypes. And then from there comes down into your conscious mind, and then you start to live life through these archetypes and through these emotions. And then that goes down into the 1D, 2D, the subconscious, and stores all of that information. Because our species hasn't been having proper bardo state, we haven't been clearing our unconscious mind, and we've just been coming back and repeating these unconscious patterns. So this shadow healing, again, serves up until a point. And when we recognize, once we've mastered ourselves and have healed this deep junk, this tar, and we continually cycle back to it, if we want to truly be creators, we've got to go up into our superconscious and tap back into our soul and see and say, hey, what archetypes did I choose to embody in this life? Because that's going to show you your high value gifts, and it's going to show you the direction of what you're here to create. And then from there, you have this imprint of actually how you're creating in this life. So a big thing that I'm doing now is actually going in and looking at, okay, well, what are the core archetypes? And we can see your core archetypes through your astrological chart. We can see your core archetypes through your human design. There are very different tools that we have on the planet for us to see the core archetypes that you're manifesting through. We can even do muscle testing, body testing against the core archetypes, like, you know, against, it's not the correct word, with the core archetypes, right? So you're muscle testing to see, and to see if that's coming through. That said, the quickest way is really to just look at your planetary alignments and to see what archetypes are coming through, because the planetary alignments represent the astral body, and then the astral body zoomed out represents the archetypes. So that's a very quick way to see, okay, what archetypes at a super conscious level am I creating through? So then I can see what high level gifts I'm holding. So every archetype has a high level gift, has a genius, has a message, has a shadow pattern. And once you see all of that, then you start to create from your super consciousness. And then you can bring your emotions and your behaviors and your thoughts all in alignment with the highest part of yourself. And once you've gotten through the archetypical awareness, then you can start to journey direct line straight up to your soul matrix and into your angelic mind and start to restructure a bit of your DNA. And I've actually just finished recording a meditation that is going to bring people through that journey of like recoding and connecting in with their angelic mind, because this is like the message that keeps coming through right now is super conscious, focus on the super conscious, right? We're leaving out this part of our mind because it's very etheric. It's something that we can't have, you know, necessarily scientific research validating it in the way that we have for the subconscious and the conscious mind currently. So the super conscious has just been kind of like this idea that's been placed on a shelf that we haven't really been addressing. And it's time for us to really start looking at it if we really want to be creating our lives very consciously and creating our highest timeline most specifically. So from that perspective, then we start to discover more of our true soul signature. And once we discover our true soul signature, then we know how and why we are showing up in the way we are showing up. For instance, I'm doing a masterclass actually teaching about the archetypes because this is so important. And in that masterclass, we're going to learn about the archetypes that you have that are specifically aligned with you to create wealth through. And wealth is, in this context, defined as health, happiness, and prosperity, right? So not only financial wealth, but also genuine health and genuine happiness and genuine purpose, right? Is all in this idea of wealth. So we'll actually be going in and discovering which archetypes you have and a soul contract level with to create wealth through, right? To create your purpose through. And once you see that, then you have this beautiful context for your high level gifts and for how you're showing up in the world and for everything else that kind of flows from that. So in that masterclass, which is going to be on December 2nd, and I can leave the link for that for anyone who wants to join me, is learning about the archetypes, learning about how you can look at your charts and actually find which archetypes you at a soul level are creating through in this lifetime so that you can start to access your super conscious level of creation. And we'll be going through that in a way that allows for you to really harness this power within you and create a truly wealthy and whole and harmonious life for yourself. Because ultimately that's what we're all here for. We're all here to be truly wealthy, right? Happy, healthy, and prosperous, living our life purposefully. And that is within our archetypes. We've created this all already. You know this. If you're watching this video, you know this. You know that you created all of this at a soul level before you came in. So now it's time to stop living in the repeat. The subconscious is just the repeat of what you've already done, right? It's what you've already experienced. The conscious is what's happening now, and the superconscious is the whole story that you already created. And that's the place where if you bring your superconscious into your consciousness, that's the place where all of the magic happens. So for anyone who wants to join that masterclass, I'll leave the link for you to come in and you can ask any questions. And you know, it's called the Soul Wealth Code, right? It's going in, it's looking at your archetypes and how they're imprinting in your life. And I'll also leave the link for anyone who wants to tap into the meditation that activates the angelic mind and activates your soul wealth code through this guided meditation journey. And that will be up in a couple of days. I actually have an audio masterful technician person who is currently editing that audio for me, because that's something that I don't know how to do. And I have no interest in learning when someone can beautifully do it for me. So I just recorded that audio and actually just sent it out. So that will be hopefully up sometime this week. That said, this is where we're shifting, right? It's time for us to really shift out of this shadow, this subconscious world, and actually see our true potential, which is conscious to super conscious, right? It's bridging these higher parts of ourselves. This is what we all are here to do. And it's just a matter of starting to actually understand how our super consciousness works and begin to tap into this blueprint that we already created, this life that we already created. We're literally living a replay of a life that we already created in our super conscious. So if we can tap into that super conscious, then we can masterfully create in this realm and align with our high level gifts, which is ultimately what allows us to live a life of more purpose. So from that space, I'm just going to see if anyone has any questions. Nina asks, is there a way to transmute trauma besides shadow work? So the answer to that question is twofold, because shadow work is essentially going into your subconscious and healing. Trauma is something that has been stored. It's a memory, it's an experience that was stored, which is automatically stored in your subconsciousness. That's where all of our memories are stored. So anytime that you're healing trauma, you're going into your subconsciousness to heal the imprints that has led for that trauma to continue to recreate itself. There is a way to do that without doing shadow work, and that is called going into your super consciousness. So we could keep going down into the depths, or we can go all the way back to source, to our soul matrix, to our super consciousness that created that, to realize, why did I create that experience to begin with? What was I here to learn from that experience, so that you learn it in your super consciousness, and then there's no need to go down and do the shadow work. Because once you are in your super conscious awareness of what that trauma was energetically to do, then it will heal and clear all levels of your being. And that's the thing about a lot of shadow work, is that it keeps coming back up because we're going into the memory. We're going into the memory of it that's biologically stored in our body, and our subconsciousness is perfect. It is designed to hold memory. So it's never going to forget that experience. It's not designed to. It is a perfect storage space of memory. It's designed to remember. It's designed to hold memory. So going in, you're not going to just all of a sudden forget it, right? Which is why forgiveness is really the key. And the ultimate forgiveness is the forgiveness towards yourself for why you created it to begin with. So that takes going up to your super conscious level. And if you start going up to your super conscious level, you'll start to realize, oh, my subconscious is just a place that stores memories, and it's perfect. And if I'm operating from a conscious to super conscious level, then everything that flows underneath that, all the dimensions below that, will be in alignment, because I'm going directly to the source of the creation of this life, which is the soul matrix, right? The angelic mind of the super consciousness. I hope that helps in answering that question. And if anyone else has any questions, I've got to go in a couple minutes as I have a call to be on. That said, yeah, this is a super consciousness. This is a super important conversation to be having, because we're in this shifting phase. And I'm really being called right now to speak more about this, because ultimately, it's not about shadow work anymore. It's about actually stepping into beginning to create this new higher timeline that so many of us see, and yet we keep going into the shadow work. We keep feeling like we're a victim to our subconsciousness. This is something that's so important, because I see so many people wanting to change their lives, and yet continuing to seal themselves in victimhood, because they feel a victim to their subconscious. They feel a victim to their shadows. They feel a victim to the experiences that they've had. And the reason that that is happening, because only you can make yourself a victim. No one can make you anything. Victimhood is a state of consciousness within you that you've not yet freed yourself from. From that space, to fully free yourself from victimhood, which allows for all of those patterns to spiral up and transmute, is to go up into the superconsciousness and to begin to commune with the part of yourself that had a reason for why it created that traumatic experience. And once that is done, the whole line clears and it's done. There's no longer a need to go back into it. For me in this life, I did so much shadow work for so long, and then I realized it would only bring me so far. And then I started to go up, directly up and out instead of down and under, and started to see that all of the answers were in my soul blueprint and would instantly transmute things effortlessly without all of this like deep, dark shadow stuff. And it's not that that's bad or wrong. It's just we get to fully understand how the mind operates. And the mind is subconscious, conscious, and superconscious, right? And each one represents a different dimension. 1 dimension, subconscious. 2, 3, conscious. 4, astral. 5, archetypical. 6, angelic. Mind, put mind after all of them, right? So this is the expanse of our mind, and our current human species is learning about the fullness of our mind. And in order to experience that, we get to start to tap into that fully and completely and start to understand it by directly communing with our superconsciousness. And that is a key reason why psychology and science hasn't given us the factual data about the superconsciousness, because the only way to fully understand it is to directly go into it and begin to commune with it. And that cannot be statistically proven. That is a real-time experience that gets to be had. And ultimately, that's what I'm all about, right? Having these real-time experiences and sharing about these archetypes, and then mapping it in your stars and in your human design to see which archetypes you have specifically chosen at a soul level to experience through. And then everything is just all beautiful from there, right? For instance, and I can share an example from my personal life. I'm in the process of bringing through what's called the rainbow path, right? It's this future earth education for star seeds and enlightened children that are coming into the planet to shift everything that we're experiencing. And in the process of creating that, we have a team and we're having meetings, and I started to feel myself shift into this mode that didn't feel right. And I started to lose interest in a vision that I had since I was a child. And I was like, this doesn't make sense. I've been literally seeing this for 30 years and knowing this to be something that I'm here to bring through. Why now am I disinterested in it? And it was just for a brief moment. And I went directly up into my superconscious and tapped into the archetypes that I'm specifically here creating through, that I'm in resonance with. And one of them is the muse. And the muse, and it holds the vision, but it's not physically building that vision. It's holding the vision and it's passing it on to the people that are building it. And I was involved with like feeling like I physically had to build this vision, and that brought me out of alignment with my soul archetype. And the moment that I recognized that and brought that to the table in the meetings and said, hey, you know what, I'm out of alignment with my soul's purpose and part in this, that shifted and it brought me back into this space where, yeah, I've known this for 30 years. This is something I'm here to create in this reality, you know, and got excited about it again. So once we see the archetypes that we're experiencing through, and the reason that I know that I'm expressing through the muse is because of where certain planetary placements are in my design and in my astrological chart. And this is something that I'm teaching you all how to do in the masterclass that I'm doing on December 2nd, which is the first time that I'm ever doing a donation-based class that you can find out about on my website. And I'll leave the link to that, because this is like what we're shifting into, right? And if you want to be a creator of your reality, then it's time to go to your superconscious. And from that space, if anyone has any questions about this or about the masterclass that I'm going to be doing, or I'm going to be teaching about these archetypes, or I'm going to be teaching about how to figure out and know your unique map, what archetypes your soul has aligned you with to create through, so that you can bring your emotions into alignment and the rest of your life into alignment with that, and understand any places that you might be still in the shadow of that archetype, so that you can shift any scarcity patterns rather quickly through this awareness. You can just message me if you have any questions on those. And on that, and that masterclass is going to be December 2nd, which is a Sunday, and I believe it's at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I believe, maybe it's 3 p.m. I'll leave the link so that you can check it out. That said, if you do have any questions as you watch this, feel free to leave them in the comments of this video. I'm going to hop off so that I can prepare for my call here in 9 minutes. And yeah, I look forward to all of you who decide to join this masterclass and to tap into your super consciousness, because it's time that we fully claim our creator consciousness, the highest aspect of ourselves, and move beyond our shadow work already and really access our luminescent selves. So much love to you all. I will leave the links in this replay. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a beautiful rest of your day or your evening, wherever you're at in the world. Much love.